Okay, so let's try and understand this model. We have several entities. We have supplier, we have customer, we have order, we have product, we have item, we have shipment. Okay, so let's look at the key to the diagram. If you see an object like this, which we call a rectangle, it is called an entity type. And we've discussed what an entity type is already when we looked at the ER model constructs. So say entity type, you know what it is. You people said you understand, so there's no problem. If you see the blue line like this, I don't know whether it's blue or whatever, however you could call it. Is it blue? Okay, it's a relationship. Then we have what we call cardinalities. Cardinality, you are seeing certain symbols on the relationships. So we have what we call the mandatory one, we have optional one, we have mandatory many, then we have the optional many. Mandatory one. Mandatory one means one and only one. One and only one. That's the mandatory one. Then we have the optional one. The optional one is 0 or 1. And in some notations, the optional one is indicated or described by 0 with dots and 1 in parentheses. So in some notations, you only see 0 dash 1, and it means optional one. And when you see 1 in parentheses, 1 in parentheses means that it is a mandatory one. Then we look at mandatory many. It is one or many. One or many. And it's another notation for it is 1 with dots and an asterisk, all in parentheses. All in parentheses. Then we have optional many. Optional many means 0 or 1 or many. 0 or 1 or many. And the notation, alternative notation is 0, 2 dots, asterisks, all in parentheses. So you have the key and then you have the cardinalities. So let's look at this diagram. You can tell that the relationship types are binary. You can see that the relationship types are binary. So we have relationship between two entities, and the binary relationship is the most common relationship that you would find. It's the most common relationship that you find. So let's try to understand these relationships. And this is what we call the crowfoot notation. This, in the introduction, it mentioned the UML, but this is not UML. UML is normally used for object-oriented modeling. For object-oriented modeling. So we'll try to understand this because I'll give you a task where you have to construct something like this. So let's look at this. So we have supplier and then item. There's a relationship between supplier and then item. Now, look at the card. You have to take note of the cardinalities that are shown here. The cardinalities. So, for instance, if you want to read this, you want to read this cardinality, the relationship is supplies and supplied by. So at this end, it is supplies. At this end, it's supplied by. So let's look at the comments here. First of all, I want to find out from you, what type of cardinality is this? Can someone tell me? What type of cardinality is this? I'm waiting. What type of cardinality is shown here? Or you can't hear me?
Hello, Doc. It seems you can't hear.
Yeah, I just heard somebody. Why is it that you can't hear me?
We can hear you.
So I'm saying that someone should tell me the cardinality that is shown here, where the cursor is.
Doc, we are speaking, but it seems you can't hear us. Somebody said mandatory many.
Okay. Yeah, so it's mandatory many. Mandatory many. Good. So let's try to read it. Okay. Let's try to read what it means. It says that each item must be supplied by one or many suppliers. So mandatory many means one or many. So in reading the cardinalities, you read, if the cardinality is here, you read from this side to this side. The cardinality is here, but you will read from item to the supplier. So it says one or many. That's the mandatory many. So each item must be supplied by one or many suppliers. Then you have to ask yourself, these things are what we call the business rules. Now, if you are given an ER diagram, it must be based on certain business rules. It is based on the business rules that you will construct your diagram. But then ask yourself, does it make sense that each item must be supplied by one or many suppliers? It means that for that particular business organization, they are saying that there is no way you can have an item without a supplier. It means that there is no way you can have an item without a supplier. Each item must be supplied by one or many suppliers. So for instance, if you have an item let's say, an entity type called item. And then in the relational model, we can say an item table. You can have one particular item, let's say sugar. Sugar will be a unique item on the item table. You cannot have different instances of sugar in the item table, or you can't have different rows of sugar in the item table. In the item table, you can have only one row of sugar because every row should be unique in the item table. But you can have several suppliers supplying sugar. It is not it's not rigid that there's only one supplier that should supply sugar, because it says each item must be supplied by one or many suppliers. So these are the things that would enforce certain constraints within the database. All right, so let's try and read this cardinality too. Now, what is the name of this cardinality? Can someone tell us?
I think 0 to.
He said, use the exact terminology.
Zero.
August optional many.
Optional meaning. So optional meaning means what? Zero or one or many. Zero or one or many. Okay. So let's try and read this card.
0.
So when you are reading, you read from the other side to this side. So a supplier may supply 0, 1, or many items. A supplier may supply 0, 1, or many items. It means that you can have a supplier who may not supply anything, supply one item or many items, and it makes sense. Because if, number one, there's no order. There's no order for an item. A supplier cannot supply. And subsequently, there could be one order or several orders where the supplier now will be taxed to supply. I hope you guys agree with me.
Yes, Doc.
Okay. All right. So, and now it's your turn to try and read. So someone should read this cardinality, as I have said, as I have shown you. This very one. This very one. I'll take the cursor off the comment so that you not see it. So I'm waiting.
Mandatory one.
Pardon me.
Mandatory one.
Yes, mandatory one. So read the cardinality out for us. That's the relationship between the two. Read it like the way I did it before. Try and see if you can read it. Who can venture? Nobody. Hello. Should I start mentioning names? Okay, Martin, you are online. Martin, can you try and read out the cardinality out for us?
So the customer is supposed to submit an order. Please, is it that part? The customer
Yeah, this
submits
one,
that part.
this particular side. Remember, there's this side. The way you read this side is different from the way you read this side. So I want you to read this side for me first. This side.
So an order is being placed, and then it's a specific order that is being placed from the by a customer. That is from the left to the right.
Okay, so let me help you out. I'm saying that you have to look at the cardinality here, which is mandatory one. And it means one and only one. And I'm saying when you are trying to read out this cardinality in the relationship, right? You start reading from this side towards this side, right?
Okay.
So it means that it says one and only one. So this is, you have to start reading from from this side, order.
All right.
So if it's one a mandatory one, then it means that each order must be submitted by one and only one customer.
Okay.
So let's try. Let's the comment will show you. Yes. So an order is submitted by only one customer. It means that when you want to translate it further, it means that if you have an order number, that order number must belong to only one customer.
Okay.
So it means that if you have a table of several orders, you have to have an order number, unique order numbers. Now, each order number in that table must belong to just one customer, one specific customer. So you cannot have one order number for two different customers. I don't know whether you understand me.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you are still on the line. Try now, after doing that, try and read this one out for us. This one.
So that one is in the first place, the relation is an optional. The relation is an optional meaning. So the order that has been placed.
Wait, I'm saying that if you want to read this portion of the relationship, and the cardinality here, when you are trying to read it out or narrate it, you must start from this side to this side.
Okay, so I shouldn't mention that means I shouldn't mention the order first, but then the customer first.
So you start from the customer, then to the order.
Okay.
And it's an optional meaning.
That means that no customer has many orders or more than one orders.
Okay, so what it means is that a customer may submit 0, 1, or many orders. Do you understand?
Yes.
A customer may submit 0, 1, or many orders. So it means that you can have a customer who may not submit an order.
Okay.
You can have a customer who can submit just one order, or you can have that same customer submitting several orders. That is why it's optional meaning. And it makes sense because if you have a list of customers, it's not every time that a customer will buy.
Yes.
Yes. You can even sign on a customer as a prospective customer, but the customer can even never make a purchase. But if the business rules state that it cannot be optional, meaning that you do not create a customer who doesn't have an order, then it means that this cardinality will not hold.
Okay.
I hope you get a concept.
Yes, Doc, I'm getting it.
Okay, you better get it fast. You better get it fast. Okay, all right, so I'm giving you one more chance. Between shipment and item, right?
Yes,
between shipment and item, I'll give you this one to read this side of the relationship, the cardinality here. So the relationship is includes and included on. So the entity types are shipment and item. Okay, but before you read it, I'll just try to understand the relationship between these two entity types. It will inform how you read it. So that is it. Try and see if you can read it out.
So, Doc, it's shipment includes one or many items.
Okay, so you are reading from, I told you to read this side. So you have already made an error.
No, it's so the cardinality is optional meaning.
Yeah.
So shipment includes one item.
You are reading if I point a cardinality out on this side, on the left side like this. When you are reading it out and you are narrating it, I said you start from the opposite, the participating entity type from here to this side.
Okay.
So many items
So
are included on the shipment.
Remember, it is optional meaning.
Yes. So, Doc, it will read one or more items included on a shipment.
So one or more items included. No, you are getting close to it, but you have not, it's not complete. And remember, included on. Okay, so that is it. Let's read it out. Each item may be included on 0, 1, or many shipments. Do you get it? Are you there?
Yes, Doc.
So each item may be included on 0, 1, or many shipments. So what it means that you can have an item. That item can be on no shipment, can be on one shipment, or on many shipments.
Okay. Doc, so what about saying that one or more items are included on no or more shipments?
One or more items.
One or more items are included on no shipments or one or more shipments.
No, that makes it complex. You see, when these things, when they actually enforce constraints on the database, as you are seeing them like this, they are not just there for nothing. So you can see you can have an item table. You can have an item table, and then you can have a shipment table. Now, on the item table, each item has a unique row or item number. So sugar will have an item number, milk will have an item number, sardines will have an item number, right? So it means that you can have several instances of sugar. There's the sugar may not on the shipment table. You may not even see sugar on the shipment table, or you can see one instance of sugar on the shipment table, or you can see several instances of sugar on the shipment table. I don't know whether you get what I mean. Okay, so last, we are spending time here. So last one, Last one, the very last one that we'll look at. Who can read this cardinality?
Doc, is mandatory many.
Mandatory many.
So someone should read it out for me.
Doc, each sheet many items.
You said? Each shipment.
Each shipment includes one or many items.
Yeah, Doc, I'm saying each shipment includes 0, 1, or many.
You people have seen it. You have seen it on the. You people saw it on the comments, right? Or you didn't see?
No,
Items. Doc, I've been
we are
seen it.
trying to understand it.
So you didn't read from the comment side.
No.
Okay. All right, then that's good. So let's see. Let's click it and see. Each shipment includes one or many items. So it means that you cannot have a shipment that doesn't have any item. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yes. You cannot have a shipment where there's no item. So there's no 0 there. So at least each shipment must have at least one item. So each shipment includes one or many items. I hope that's okay. Now you understand.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can move on. Yeah, I'm listening. So examples of entity type. So we are saying that an entity type can have a physical existence and a conceptual existence. And if an entity type has a physical existence, you could have examples such as staff, property, customer, parts, supplier, and product. And a conceptual existence could be viewing, sale, inspection, work experience, right? So these are conceptual. You cannot actually physically see them. An entity should be what? One, an object that will have many instances in a database. Secondly, an object that will be composed of multiple attributes. Three, an object that we are trying to model. So for instance, before you select something as an entity that you want to include in an ER diagram or whatever, take note. It's an object that must have many instances in the database. So for instance, student, you know that the student, if you take an entity type called student, you must have several instances. So you can't create an entity where there's only one instance or one row. It wouldn't qualify. An object that will be composed of multiple attributes. So if you take an entity called student, it should have several multiple attributes, but not just one attribute. And an object that we are trying to model, if that entity is not relevant to the problem we are trying to solve, there's no point calling that an entity. And it should not be a specific user of the database system. And it should also not be an output of the database system. For example, a report. So a specific user of the database, if we have somebody, maybe a customer service officer who is using a database, you cannot lift that particular role and say it is an entity or entity type, if I should put it that way. Example of inappropriate entities. So treasurer expense report. Say treasurer receives expense report. The treasurer is a particular user of the database. So it does not qualify to be an entity. Expense report is an output from the database. It cannot be an entity. Account is charged, or expense is charged on an account, right? So this is not a particular, an account is an entity because it has, account has several instances, expense too has several instances and several attributes. And these are conceptual in nature. Relationship types. I think we spoke about relationship types. So relationship type is a set of meaningful associations among entity types. And a relationship occurrence, uniquely identifiable association, which includes one occurrence from each participating entity type. So we can have staff, a branch has staff. The relationship name is has. We've talked about this already. So binary relationships are generally referred to as one-to-one, one-to-many, or many-to-many. And the sample ER diagram showed us, I explained it when we're trying to read the cardinalities. What is an attribute? The property of an entity or relationship type. Attribute domain is a set of allowable values for one or more attributes. So the domain of the attributes means that if you take an attribute of a student called Kofi, such as gender, gender can either be male or female. So the attribute domain will be the set of allowable values for that attribute's gender. So gender, male or female, you have to say what kind of values can be accepted, right? So are you going to say text, that the domain will be text and the length not more than a specific value. So for instance, female is FEMALE, which is 6 characters. So you can say that, okay, the attribute domain for gender is text, with maximum length 6. And we are not, the issue is that are we, when you consider the LGBTQ or whatever plus people, right? Are you with me?
Yes, Doc.
Good. So in terms, if you were designing the database, right? And then we want to set a domain for the attribute gender, will you stick to male or female? Or you are going to expand it to other things?
Oh, still male or female?
And I made a comment about the LGBTQ plus or whatever.
Yes, Doc, but they are still males and females.
You said?
Doc, they are still males and females.
No, there's transgender.
Doc, in their minds, but not physically. Or unless.
So if you have a customer, right? You have a customer, you want to, let's say you are a relation. Who is the relationship manager? Or is it which one? I've forgotten who the relationship manager is.
Mr. Paul.
Who?
Mr. Paul.
Doc, Paul.
Paul.
Yes, Doc.
Paul.
Doc.
Yes, you are a relationship manager, right?
Yes, Doc.
You have this big ticket client. The person is a big ticket client. You understand who a big ticket client is?
Yes, Doc.
Good. And then you send application forms for the person to fill. Then the person is one of these LGBTQ plus people. On the form, you have only male and female. And then the person asks that, why have you limited it to male or female? And now if there's no transgender on the form, you won't fill it. What will you do?
Doc, well, maybe as at the time of printing the form, these things were not as serious as it is now. So once in business, we can model the form to take male, females, and others. So
And
if you are not a male and you are not a female, then you take other. Then we go away.
So you would tell your manager that this is a problem. So at that point, will you tell the company to print new forms, or you are going to use pen to write other on the form?
Well, I will inform I will inform my superiors, and then we take a decision. Once it's a big ticket business deal, then we should comply with at least basic information of the client. So we would not.
But remember that the database came with certain when they were designing the database. I'm sure do you capture client data in the system?
No, I don't do capturing.
So those who are doing the capturing will say that when they want to create a new customer in the system, when it gets to gender, the drop down list includes only male and female. So what are they going to do?
So that's what I said. I will make a business decision to my boss, and then he will forward it to the IT department to quickly include it in the system, so that we take that business. Because I'm looking at the business aspect of not losing the client based on this gender issues. So we have at least 2 basic genders, and all other exceptions will be included in the others.
Okay, well noted.
Yeah, but doc, that will be if it's accepted.
So that is the issue, because the organization too has a philosophy. So some organizations will tell you that, okay, we cannot change it. So we don't mind if we lose the client. Meanwhile, you're also looking at meeting your target.
That's
but
why I said
it's
I will
like,
make a business decision. So when it comes, when the time of accountability comes, you can also use this as a justification of not meeting your target, because still whether it is by a transsexual or so, whatever they call themselves, still they do transactions. So
no, Mr. Paul, it's
yeah.
like you open an account for an illegal miner or a cocaine dealer. It's not accepted, so you can't use that as an excuse that you are getting only cocaine dealers or we farmers are
Don't
only the
forget
client
there
that you are
are
meeting.
rules. I can open the account and forward it to compliance for compliance to do the due diligence. So by the time they are doing that, the funds will sit in my portfolio. I can refer it to compliance.
That you have gotten cocaine dealers as your new client, that they should consider.
They would do due diligence on the source of the funds. For me, I'm looking at getting it in my portfolio, and then I will forward a report to them for them to do a due diligence on the source of the funds.
Okay, so yeah, so you see the issues that are coming up. So what the issue is that, you see, there's always the issue of how to tilt the balance, because there are the ethics. We look at the ethics of the business. We look at profitability, and it's a skill. So is the business willing to tilt the scale in favor of ethics or profitability? That is where senior managers have to sit down and then take a critical look at it. But I think this is, with the issue of the gender, it is much more flexible than the issue of you onboarding high-risk clients and hiding it, which has serious compliance issues. You get me? So if you go and onboard a cocaine dealer when you know the person is a cocaine dealer, and then when we are doing the how do you say a KYC, you are doing your KYC, did you do your due diligence before you onboarded the client? But that's just by the way. So let's move on. So we look at keys. We look at, for now, for the ER model, we'll look at just these 3 keys, but further on, we'll look at more keys. So we say that the candidate key is a minimal set of attributes that uniquely identifies each occurrence of an entity type. Primary key is a candidate key selected to uniquely identify each occurrence of an entity type. And a composite key is a candidate key that consists of 2 or more attributes. So first of all, let's try and see if we can identify a candidate key. We say it's the minimal set of attributes that uniquely identifies each occurrence of an entity type. So let's see. Okay. So let's look at this branch and staff. Now, branch has, this is a relational model. So this is called a relation. But it's also an entity type called branch. These are the attributes: branch number, street, city, and postcode. We are looking at the attributes or set of attributes that can uniquely identify a branch. So I need your input. In your opinion, which set of attributes can uniquely identify the branch?
Branch number.
Branch number. The branch number can, but I'm also interested in sets of attributes.
Street, city, postcode.
You said?
The street, the city, and the postcode.
Street, city, postcode. All right, so postcode. The postcode, let's look at this postcode carefully. This is coming from a different country, right? It's coming from a different country. So we are looking at, this is the UK, because we have London, Aberdeen, Glasgow, Bristol, and London. This is UK, right? Now, first ask yourself, what is a postcode in there? If let's say you are staying in London, right? You are staying in London, and you are staying in a particular part of London, right? If you have a postcode, is that postcode unique to you throughout London, or it is not unique to you?
It's unique.
I think the postcode is unique to an area.
So the postcode alone will not work.
Yes.
So that means you could have two. Okay, so these are branches, right? It's not like a individual client. So these are branches. So branches are in. You have branches in territories.
Maybe a digital system address will work.
Is it?
Maybe the digital address.
Yeah, but let's look at it carefully. Now, if let's say Standard Chartered, let's say Standard Chartered, right? I don't think is it possible that Standard Chartered will have more than one branch in London? Yes, it's possible, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so let's say there's area A in London, there's area B in London, area C in London. This postcode, if it is specific to particular areas, then we don't need to get the truth, but I want to build a case. If the postcode is unique to that particular area, then we can say that the postcode alone could also be a unique identifier. I don't know whether you get me.
Yes, Doc, I get it.
If and only if we are sure that the postcode is unique to that territory and no other territory in the organization has that postcode. So we can say branch number, postcode. We can also have a combination of maybe streets and city. That can also uniquely identify, because you can have, if we maybe you can have 22 Deer Road in London and another 32 Deer Road in Aberdeen, right? So because of that, we can't use only the street name, but we can use a combination of the street name and the city. Do you get me?
Dog, we can also use the GPRS address.
But we don't have it. It's not an attribute in the table we are looking at. We are looking at the table, this particular table.
The street and the postcode.
No, we've already agreed that the postcode is a unique identifier.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to look, we are looking at the minimal sets, right? If you want to use street and postcode, fine. Street postcode. If you think it will work, no problem. Street, and so in this case, the best thing is to list all the candidate keys. You list all the candidate keys. So now we understand what a candidate key is. Do we?
Yes, doc.
Okay. So the candidate is the minimal set of attributes that uniquely identifies each occurrence of an entity type. So when you list all the candidate keys, or we say keys, before we go to candidate key, we go to keys. So we have listed all the keys. The candidate key will be the minimal set. So all the keys that you list, you only choose the one with the minimal set of attributes. That will be the candidate key. So if after the exercise you have about 5 keys, we have about 5 keys. And out of the 5 keys, you get two keys that have the minimal set. Then those are the candidate keys. Now, out of the candidate key, you have to choose one as the primary key. So the primary key is the candidate key that is selected to uniquely identify each occurrence of an entity type. So if you have any candidate key that consists of 2 or more attributes, we can call it a composite key. Okay. Here are a diagram of staff and branch and the attributes. So this is also another sample ER diagram. So we have staff, branch. Staff the staff manages the branch. Branch has staff. So staff number, primary key. These are the attributes. Now, branch number here, staff number is primary key, branch number is primary key, Then if we decide that address and postcode, postcode is part of the address. Is that it? Yes. So that's a composite attribute. It's a composite attribute. But we've not agreed whether it is a composite key or not, because the way this is listed, it does not look, and the address, we have street, city, postcode. So these are under the address. So we say it's a composite attribute. So in this particular ER diagram, we have identified primary key as staff number. So staff number is primary key for the staff entity type, and then branch number as primary key for the branch entity type. So sample data model for a furniture company in crowfoot notation, right? So I have told you. So this is another sample ER model. Okay, so now I'm going to give you, let's say, some specifications, and you try and then come up with an ER diagram or model based on the specification. So please give me